Episode 1 of the Travel Clean podcast coming at you. We had episode 0 last week, just as a test run. Wasn't actually intended to be a podcast, but this one we're actually changing the format a little bit and moving forward. So today we're going to talk about things that are going on in cocoa and chocolate world. How we're doing. You know, we're an upstart little boutique travel agency, if you will. Just to give you some behind the scenes and what's going on. All that good stuff. Also, we're going to look at some travel updates. I'm sure all of y'all heard about TSA and the partial government shutdown, and everybody has their thoughts. Also, going into what the segment that we love, what makes us better than the next guy or gal. So from our perspective, all in jest, right? We're all here to make the world better. But what are the things and why we think that travel agents, we like to call them travel designers because agent is a little bit different designer, but maybe we'll get into that in a little bit. And then going into some travel hacks, travel hack of the week, and then ending with how travel was related to wellness, which, spoiler alert, is actually one reason that we got into travel, is just because of that connectivity. So let's roll.
Back in the city where the lights stay wild. Bass hit heavy, got a club on trial. Shorty too bad, got a dangerous smile. On the headline, maybe not just a stop. Pull up clean, no stress.
All right, I feel a little bit like Stephen A. Smith with a Let's Roll for all fans out there on First Take, about First Take on ESPN. Definitely feels a little Stephen A. Smithy there. So, all right, y'all, thank you so much for joining us. I know we're low in the subscribers right now, but we're hoping we can start this thing and get some little momentum going from the travel perspective. There's just not that many travel channels out there on YouTube or information out there. And we're kind of sick of seeing the standard, we have this, 20 spots left for you on this, trip to Cancun, which is only $18.95 all in. We realize how helpful that is to know the final all-in cost, right? It's very easy just to say yes or no to that, right? But from our perspective, that is a travel agent. That is an agency who basically sells by price, right? So what we thought is, what if we put together some truly great experiences that are tailored to a specific person, right? From the perspective of when you sell $18.95 to Cancun for 20 people, there is no way that you can customize that trip for 20 people. So what we've done is we've come out with, some kind of way to describe, what kind of trip you want from your perspective, and talking about, from vibes, relaxed. Actually, let me pull that up right now. Right now I have my computer down here. So if you see me looking down, that is exactly what I'm looking at. 1 second. So we have the relaxed. I don't know where my spreadsheet has gone. Pulling it up. And by the way, one commitment to you is that we are going to try to do this podcast uncut and very light editing. We might put some overlays in if it's something pertinent that we want to talk about, and it might be better to see full screen. But we're trying to do this in a very transparent, authentic way, as a lot of podcasts are. All right, here we go. So our 7 vibes: relaxed, immersed, pampered, family fun, active and wellness, educational or guided or kind of purpose-driven, and then unique and less traveled, right? So I think some of those things are probably kind of saying the thing for themselves. But what we're trying to do is at the end of this trip, right? So we're trying to give vision and kind of structure to the trip and start with kind of this mindset that we want to walk out with. And then we can kind of backfill that mindset with the activities, dining options, places you want to go even, and how we can kind of get to that point. So from our perspective, that just serves to make a better trip versus saying, here's a trip, does it fit? Which is never really works. Or I should say never really works. To be fair, travel agency has been around for a for a long time. Now, it started back when flights were very empty, if you remember, in the 70s and 80s. For those of you who are young enough, if you will, in the color of hair that I might have, or I do have, they started back when airlines were really looking for help to kind of fill their planes. We don't have that issue today. So clearly, travel agents, as they have been, I agree with most that they are outdated. However, I will say there's a ton of room for travel design, right? This idea of helping and partnering with you on a trip and travel experience that you want. And how do you get there, right? Because that's not always the easiest thing. A little bit, to some degree, maybe this isn't actually a great metaphor, but some degree, kind of like buying a house, right? I think we could all sell our house, but it's nice to have kind of the backbone and the help from your realtor to kind of put structure to it and say, hey, here's what's next, here's what's coming, here's what to expect. Now, clearly, there are some legalese things that kind of fall through there, so the metaphor kind of breaks down, but hopefully you get my drift there. So anyway, so for those of you who are just encountering us for the first time, that's what we're all about. We like to have a little bit of fun. That would explain why I have my 6-year-old daughter's headphones on. She actually just turned 6 today. And it's just a fun time. Let's not take ourselves too seriously. This is all about travel. This is across the 8 areas of wellness as well. So it's travel is supposed to be a lighthearted, serious thing. Now, clearly, there's a lot invested in it. We don't take that light. But let's have a little fun in life as we go. So, all right. So moving in, let's see. So we wanted to talk through kind of first, start off with Cocoa and Chocolate. What's going on with Cocoa and Chocolate Travel Company, right? What's going on behind the scenes? And just want to talk, first of all, thank you for our clients so far. Y'all have been wonderful. Even the folks that maybe have worked with us to some extent but haven't booked or whatever that looks like. We know there's so many variables that go into booking and creating a travel experience that get to the point where you're ready to invest financially. We've been there, right? We've, literally maybe 6 to 8 months ago, we were the person that says, I can book this myself. Why do I need anybody's help, right? Actually, through this process, we learned a ton about the travel industry, mostly what's broken, mostly things that we're trying to address, and hopefully kind of bring you along for that ride and bring your friends along to help understand exactly where we're coming from and why the travel industry isn't all that it seems to be, or maybe it is what it seems to be. But we should expect more out of the travel industry. We should not, just because they offer a certain set of ways to do a thing, does not mean it is the best way. So we're not ready to accept that yet. All right. So first thing we're going to talk about client questions, right? So what we want to do is kind of each of these podcasts just kind of like walk through kind of the highest frequency questions that might occur. And one of those things we actually just got last week from one of our dear and lovely clients, talking about, specifically how we come across the options that we do, right? So if you have a specific request and say, in this specific instance, it was, I want to book a hotel prior to my trip. We already had kind of the main piece of the travel experience booked and ready and, ready to go. Client came back to me and just said, hey, you know what? I want to spend the night near the it's early flight. I want to spend the night near the airport prior to leaving. Makes a ton of sense, right? We talked about that a little bit in the beginning. Client has decided that's the way we want to go. So what we do is effectively, we actually try to weed through reviews. So we look at things as reviews, sentiment scores for specific places. We do take budget into account, right? But I will also say that we almost never use budget as the final say. So want to say that out loud because I think it's a little bit different than kind of traditional travel agencies again, right? Like, how do we set ourselves from the designer, right? We're going for experience. We don't want to break your pocketbook or wallet, as it were. But we do want to take into account that, you get what you pay for. So it's not always about finding the lowest number. That's actually a very easy thing. And I think that's what the travel industry kind of wants you to think. And we've fallen into that trap because I think we've all been burned by the travel industry previously, right? So we all say, we've all been in that situation where we have, spent more than we needed to, and it was a terrible experience. or we were promised something and we didn't get it, right? So I think what we see is a lot of this general kind of surface distrust, and rightfully so, right? I'm not saying this is a distrust that the travel industry hasn't worked hard to gain. They have done a great job of gaining distrust. If there's one thing they've done over the past 30, 40 years is gain a ton of distrust from travelers, and that's unfortunate. But what we wanted to do is kind of bring to light. So we look at the entire picture as best we can. We look at, like I said, we look at reviews, we look at the cost, we look at the amenities, we look at the room type, how big the room is. Clearly for an overnight stay at a hotel prior to your trip, you're not going to need anything too elegant. You want something that's just kind of standard. I just want to go there, spend the night, wake up early, have a shuttle, preferably to the airport, and not only just a shuttle. And this is actually kind of an interesting take on it as well, is that not all shuttles are created equal. I'm sure if you have any shuttle stories, we'd love for you to comment below. I'm sure there's a ton out there. I have a few, even personally myself. Just because a hotel or lodging option says that they have a shuttle does not mean that the shuttle is going to be on time, is going to be reliable. So you're looking into not only reviews about the place you're staying, but probably even more important is the actual reviews of the shuttle service. Especially when you're it's your only reliable way to get to the airport and get to your flight. A lot of times I've come across lodging options that have 24/7 shuttles, and I've come across reviews where the driver is called off, and you're totally at the mercy of the next man up or woman up within the shuttle driving piece of that. And thankfully, a lot of those stories, they do come through and help. But in the meantime, you're running late, right? So in the midst of all of this, you're thankful that shuttle driver B has come through, but you've also already probably lost at least 30 to 45 minutes at the minimum. And that already gets your experience off to an anxious or urgent start, right? So this is some of what we talk about of how we take into account experience. It probably, once you get on the plane, a lot of times the anxiety will drop. But in that meantime, you're probably urgent. You're wondering what the security lines are going to look like, especially in the weeks that we're in now. You have a lot to do when you get to the airport. The longer the trip, the more you have to worry about and the more you have to figure out. What we want to do to the best of our ability is say, okay, we understand that this hotel might be, I don't know, we'll just say even $80 less, right? But from our perspective, if I had to say to you, spend, a trade-off between spending extra $80 and having a reliable shuttle service, that you don't start off your travel experience in an anxious, urgent way, rushed way, or save your $80 and risk, right? It doesn't mean it's going to happen either. That's also what we're trying to say. We're not trying to kind of create horror stories here or, make everybody who spends $80 less kind of feel less than. That's not our intention. But the point is you're taking a higher risk, right? So there's a balance between budget and risk. And most of our cases that we've seen, generally speaking, anything, $80 or less is probably a good point to spend a little bit extra, especially if it's only one night. If it's $80 a night for multiple nights, clearly that adds up quickly. But if it's, $80 for one night, agree it would be lovely to save that $80. But what we don't want to find out is we don't want to have that story and another use case of, I wish I would have spent the $80 more, right? We're trying to make you not become that example. So anyway, we just want to talk a little bit about that because I think it's very easy to get into kind of the cost piece of this, excuse me, and kind of the nickel and diming that goes on. And again, from our perspective, we will stay tolerant of that, right? That's part of the game that we're in. It's also the hole that the travel industry has dug, right? But along the way, we definitely want to kind of help you understand where we're coming from and hopefully build that trust with you, because we think that is an integral part of travel. Is, sometimes it can feel nickel and dimey, but at the same time, we don't want you coming back as a horror story. We want you coming back thinking nothing about, all that, the logistics, and thinking purely about the experience, purely about the friends, the people you've met, the family pieces of it, the memories, the pictures, the videos. That is our intent. Or if it's a business trip, the business pieces of that. We do not, from our perspective, we want to be able to handle those logistics, and sometimes looking out around the corner for some of those things that might happen. So anyway, so hopefully that's a little bit of good insight from our perspective of where we're coming at that. We definitely are not, I've said this before, if you watch some of our past videos, 5-star resorts, unless you specifically ask for them, 4 and 5-star resorts, we will not book those for you, right? That's not what we're looking for. That is clearly, again, the way that commissions work. That is where travel agents are incentivized to really book. It's a higher price for those service options. And that means we get a higher, the 10% commission rate on some of those things, or even sometimes more commission rate on those, comes back at a higher payback for travel agents. But from the design perspective, we're trying not to be short-sighted. We're looking long-term. We want you to trust us. We want to work together with you for a long time, right? We don't want this to be a one-off. We want you to come back and say, each time we work, that we understand each side better. If John comes back and says, hey, I want a trip to Curacao, from our perspective, we want John to completely trust our judgment and be through the paces that we need to be already. So John feels comfortable that he's getting the best price. And even if it doesn't, he can come back and kind of challenge that from our perspective and say, hey, I saw this price here. A lot of times the consumer pieces, the things that you see on the outside, are much different than the tools that travel designers, travel agents use within the industry. And by the way, I'm using those interchangeably. I don't believe they're the same, but a lot of the tools we use were treated like travel agents. So I am a little bit forced into using that terminology, but we are trying one of our goals, and it's a lofty goal, right? But we believe in lofty goals that keep you kind of stretching and moving towards kind of the peak and kind of the impossible. Is to change the industry in a way that doesn't look at just bookings as bookings, but looks as experiences, right? It doesn't say experience as kind of, just kind of experience washing the situation where we just say, yeah, we care about your experience, but nothing else operationally changes. We are trying our best to bring kind of changed operations to the travel industry. And we'll do it, one person at a time. All right. So also wanted to talk about, looking down my computer, one of the things I wanted to kind of walk through here is some operational learnings and changes that we're looking at. One of them is what we're doing here. For a long time, for probably the past two months or so, we've tried to create specific pieces of content. That has really, as we've grown, has really gotten challenging to kind of maintain the content creation process. If you've ever tried to create content, first of all, I was one of those folks from the outside looking in that just thought oh man, what a life content creators have, right? How easy is this? But if you ever done it, first of all, to have kind of the ideation part of that, and then also even what we're doing in a podcast, which is unscripted, but you still have to think through what you want to talk about, put bullet points up. That all takes time, right? So what you see on the screen is a product of all of that. The screen actually, and then you have to have kind of a on-screen presence to make it interesting. Something I hope to develop over time, because quite honestly, I don't find myself all that interesting, but I do want to get the word out about the travel industry and kind of things we're seeing too. I want to be as transparent and authentic as possible. So that's one reason we're trying to change to a podcast format. What we hope to see is, every week on a Saturday, we'll kind of push these out. So happy Saturday, release day for podcast number 1. And then have, snippets of what we talk about here, kind of feeding within YouTube Shorts that hopefully kind of point folks to cocoa and chocolate travel companies, kind of things we look at. Excuse me, gotta turn my screen on behind me. So we want to make, not even if folks don't become clients, right? From our perspective, we just want to train, again, we want to change the travel industry. So that doesn't necessarily mean we have to do that through clients. Clearly it's helpful, and we do need clients to be sustainable in this industry. But we also understand that people are people. We all have preferences. It's okay. There's different varieties, and there's good options out there. There's even good options, other options of travel designers out there. So let's not fool ourselves and think we're the only ones here. But anyway, from that perspective, so we have to get a little bit lighter on the content creation process, and hopefully this is an avenue. So definitely keep us in tune. It's very easy from our perspective to see what we're seeing and think what we're thinking without kind of your input. But again, from travel design perspective, we're very human-centered. We want to know exactly what you're seeing, because it could be a blind spot for us. Don't assume that we see it and we're just ignoring it, or we don't want to address it, or hiding, or whatever any of the other negative things could be about that. We really just want your input. We just want to hear from you. We want to chat with you, even if it's about even if there's no intention to book a travel experience, that's okay, right? One thing we do know is that at some point in everybody's life, they're going to want to go somewhere, right? So if we happen to be friends through that process, and you're like, hey, what about this? Or what, that is cool. We don't necessarily need to be at a point where, we're ready to book from that perspective. So cool. So Cocoa and Chocolate Travel Company milestones. I call it C+C or CNC. So you actually see in our little bug in the upper right corner that it says CNC. So if you hear me reference that, just know this Cocoa and Chocolate. I'm sure you're able to figure that out, but just want to make sure that's clear. In my career, I've been caught for kind of using acronyms without kind of sharing what is the acronym. It's just more of a shorthand way to write things. So anyway, milestones. We now have enough clients to use a CRM system that the Fora travel agency provides for us. This is super exciting, right? It's always been part of this. And for those of you who don't know, Cocoa and Chocolate is our parent agency is Fora Travel. So Fora.travel. Go check them out. A bunch of travel agents, a collection of them. They aren't necessarily bent in the same way. Fora does a great job of kind of allowing you to be who you want to be, or kind of be in the niche space that you want to be in the travel industry. You don't have to continually kind of follow the same model. So I'm not going to guarantee there's a ton of other people inside of Fora that are like us. But yeah, definitely check them out. Give a little credibility to this. But anyway, they provide a platform that allows us to keep information and kind of organize the information about the trips and experiences that we're booking. It allows us to use secure forms to collect information from you. So we're not sending it through unencrypted email. We're sending it through a secure form. So basically a lot of these, they also have an itinerary mobile app, which we'll talk about at some future instance, or feel free to ask me a question about it today. So Fora has done a great job. So you'll see my email is actually mike.holland@fora.travel. So that explains the relationship with Fora. We have actually, along with that, we've actually just gotten white label approved from our perspective. So you'll actually be seeing, for those who've interacted with us, you'll actually be seeing a little bit of less of Fora branding on things. So specifically, I think the most places that shows up, the email will stay the same, although at some point we hope to brand that with our own branding. Excuse me, my voice is not sticking with me today. But specifically, there's option guides that we actually like to hand out for a little bit of the way we work. One thing we hate are endless questionnaires. We start with 5 questions, try to keep it as simple as possible. And then we actually work through the questions through the actual work, right? So if you say you want to go to Disney World in June, we'll ask, 5 questions of what that looks like. And you see those on our website of cocoandchocolate.com. On the contact page, we actually have an FAQ. So it actually lists out the 5 questions, so you can come prepared if you so choose to. But from our perspective, instead of asking all the questions and kind of using it as a gating process where it's like we can't move forward until we have these 500 questions answered, how about we just go with 5? And then how about we just work through it together, right? This is where the partnering comes in. So based on those 5 and based on the information I have, I might ask. That doesn't mean I only ask 5. If I have a question, I'm going to ask it. If you have a question, you should ask it. It doesn't mean we're withholding. It just means we're getting let's work together. Let's not have this questionnaire thing in the middle, blocking everything. So effectively, there's this options guide that's based on the information I know. I'll pick, 3 to 4 options. It could be based on budget. Most important thing to you, right? Generally speaking, is I kind of perceive and interpret through our conversation. And we'll start with those 3 or 4. And anywhere in the gamut, it might be something that, you clearly say, hey, I want number 2, and I like everything about that itinerary, right? Usually it's not super specific at that point. It's just kind of slowly trying to hone the thing in, right? Until we get to a point down here where, okay, we know this is the type of thing you're looking for. Now we can build out a specific itinerary. We can actually book out specific things. So we're just looking at it's kind of like this upside down triangle, also known as a funnel, to work through that process for you. Because I think it's really difficult to answer questionnaires before you start working with a person. So I think just on the surface, it's become a habit of travel agents to do. And I find it maddening. Most of the questions, not only is it long, but most of the questions are just really, really difficult to answer because you're it kind of depends, right? If it's, there's usually a trade-off involved. So why don't we just save that for the actual discussion about the experience? And that's just how we kind of work. So anyway, there's branding within that travel guide as you work with us that will change and be cocoa and chocolate branded. So we're excited about that. It's another step forward in our new experience here, kind of startup travel design boutique. So cool. All right, cool. Behind the scenes from our perspective, so we're playing with a few things. I'm gonna, I think from our some things that we're looking at, actually the most exciting one is probably this trails and vibes concept, and actually it's on our website as well. Just it's a very thin page saying, hey, to be determined type thing. So there's not a ton of information, but this is something that I just started reaching out to local businesses here. So for those of you who don't know, we're based in the Hershey area, Hershey, Pennsylvania area. So we are assuming we get enough buy-in with local businesses, we hope to put kind of a trail concept together. For those of you who might have taken part in other kind of eating trails, or ice cream trails is a popular one, we're hoping to do that for a specific location in terms of activities, lodging, and dining, so that you can get a taste of how we put together an itinerary based on a vibe that we mentioned earlier. And it's almost like a try before you buy, right? So it's, instead of waiting until you have a trip that you may want to go on, or, giving this guy who's wearing pink headphones money, after you've known him and worked with him for a couple weeks. It's an opportunity to go especially if you happen to be local, to go and say okay, so for the relaxed vibe, we have these 5 dining experiences, right? So you get to go partake in that and see for yourself. Does it feel relaxed? Would you agree with the way that we looked at it? So hopefully it's kind of building that trust layer. So when we say it's relaxed, and we say it's relaxed in another country or another location within the US, that you can feel comfortable that it indeed will be relaxed, and it's your version of relaxed. Or if it's not your version of relaxed, you can understand, what our version is and kind of adjust based on that. So it's really kind of this try before you buy model. We're starting to work with local businesses. And by the way, the second piece of that is that it helps local businesses, right? Which is one thing we just is hugely important to us. It's not only helping, you, the client or prospective client, kind of understand what we're all about, but also helping people know that there's other businesses, especially in Hershey. It's very much run. This may be a surprise to some of you. There's this thing called Hershey Chocolate Company in Hershey. It has a lot of the nicer facilities. It has a lot of the things to do. Let's face it, if it wasn't for Hershey Chocolate Company, there would be a very small, if anything, contingent of residents in Hershey or Dairy Township, as it's also called. So what we want to call out is that there are more things than just Hershey and Hershey, right? There are a ton of awesome local, hardworking local businesses that are second to none in Hershey. And a lot of them are kind of hidden because of that veil of Hershey. People come to Hershey Park, they do, Hershey Lodge, or why can't I think of Hershey Hotel. It's a very complicated name. Hershey. So a lot of people come do kind of the Hershey things and are not necessarily willing to take a step because it's their first time there, right? Are not willing to take a step and see what local businesses have. And it's a lot. I'll tell you that. Like it constantly impresses upon me of like how many things there actually are in this area that are so easy to forget and overlook. So anyway, so this Trails and Vibes concept is coming to life. The idea is something along the order of you'll have a punch card, pick a vibe that you want to kind of follow. You have a punch card that says, hey, you get a punch card here. You have to make some sort of purchase. So the lodging we're still trying to work out because clearly it's not fair to ask you to make 5 lodging purchases within Hershey to get a gift card back or a discount on your trip with us back. But effectively, that's the idea. So there's some details we're still working out, but it's kind of a cool thing that we think will hopefully kind of take off and be something if you visit Hershey, and maybe even something expansion wise that we could do in future locations, right? The same thing. So Hershey's really kind of the first test of that, just because it's where we're at, it's local. Easier to do, things like that. So some more to come on that. We'd love to hear your feedback on that. Again, comment, let us know like if that's a terrible idea or if you tried it and you don't like it, or just any sentiment is welcome from that perspective. We're not easily offended. Anyway, so yeah. Cool. All right, guys, let's see. Travel updates. I don't really have much else to share here. I think we're all, for those of you who have trips or are interested, you're seeing what's going on with TSA. The standard right now, especially at major airports, is 4 hours wait time. So make sure if your flight leaves at 6 a.m, you got to get there at 2. If you're not sure when the airport, sometimes the airport, like maybe not necessarily closed, but feels closed. Feel free to definitely give the airport a ring. Or, if not a ring these days, but maybe it's a message of some sort. Just reach out to see when you can actually get in that airport, because clearly that could be different. We would say that today, actually, we're just reading that, and we're recording this on Thursday, actually, reading that there is potential for a bill to be shaped. We all know that the pace of Washington looks like. So it's tentative excitement, right? So hopefully this will get resolved. ICE is out there as well. ICE, good or bad, hopefully will be helpful in terms of shuffling people through, keeping people ready. The big thing is, and we have a video on this, so if you want, there's 4 great kind of points that we have in a video, so please check out our channel. The big thing that I can continually see is that even after waiting 4 hours in line, people are not ready when they get through line, right? So readiness could actually start before you leave your house, right? So if you can get by without a belt or with slip-on shoes, if there are any ways, or keep your wallet in your backpack, right? Keep your phone in your backpack. Do not keep it out separately. The only thing that has to go separate is your laptop and each bag. And shoes, right? So if there's any way to decrease that, because the other thing to think about is how many bins people are using. And even in short wait times with security lines, those bins can be in short supply. So think about when you have a 3 to 4 hour wait, and half of the staff, if not more, has either not showed up or called off because they're not getting paid. And let's remember, these people are not just all lazy because, I'm taking my ball going home. These are people that they have to decide what to do with their time. They have families, they have bills, they have things to pay. let's think about, does it make sense for them to go to work for 8, 10, 12 hours in a day and not get paid for it when they could be doing something else that they're getting paid for, right? So they're having to make very difficult trade-off decisions as well. So I would just caution us to kind of rush towards, I think there's kind of an instinct to say, why are they calling off? That's terrible. Let's just, the human side of that is they need money to keep going too. And getting reimbursed, at some later point for all the time that they're putting in doesn't help them today. So also think about if there's ways to help that. Like I know Elon Musk has even said about like paying off not paying off, but paying for the TSA shortage, the budget shortage as well. So I don't think that's gone anywhere, probably because of federal contracting and he has to act as a contractor and there's this process involved to kind of keep things neat and tidy. But point being is if there's any way that you can think of to just kind of, even if it's a pat on the shoulder for a TSA officer, just keep that in mind. And the other thing within that video too, is something I actually learned through this process, is that there's a list of probably, if I remember, 12 to 15 airports. A lot of them are kind of like second and third tier. They're not necessarily major. I think one of them was major airport that actually contract out their TSA, and they're actually not impacted at all by this because they get their lump of change prior, or actually at contract signing each year. So they already have their money. Their agents that they're using that are contracted out to TSA actually are still getting paid because that money has already been allocated. So try to use those airports if you can. And another point I would say, which actually isn't in this video, but actually got me to thinking when I was talking with my dad the other day about taking a trip, is this is something, this goes against what we would normally recommend, but if there is a smaller airport nearby you, it may be worth paying a little bit extra to take that, right? Because the lines, clearly, this is an obvious statement alert, the lines at security are formed because there's a large group of people trying to come through at the same time. So if you find a way to either decrease the amount of people that are going to that airport, so smaller airports, or if you find a way to change up the time, right? Another option is take a later flight. I've seen video and pictures already of, I think it was BWI at 5:39 a.m. Something like, I don't know why that number sticks out in my mind, of just like, people everywhere, right? 3 to 4 hour wait. Literally, 5 to 6 hours later, around noontime, maybe, a handful of people in line, right? And I think instinctively we know that we all want to get to the place we want to get to. And a lot of times the best option has been to take that first flight because there's less chance of it being delayed, all those good things. But now might be the time to kind of consider, would a later flight make more sense to me to kind of be outside of that rush window? Again, there's trade-offs to all of this. I'm not saying any of these work. There's still risk involved. But it might be, if lines are not your thing, this might be the time to consider either of those things. So check out that video. There's a lot more information on there. It's kind of funny. We sent that out a couple weeks ago, and then literally, a week or so ago, we started seeing kind of the bigger news places kind of carry these things. I was very tempted to just say, welcome to the club. Like, glad you guys can catch up, right? These are things that are somewhat intuitive, but also I think just good to hear out loud as well. So cool. Let's see. So what makes us better than the next guy? This is our favorite section. So we just wanted to talk a little bit about OTAs, and OTAs are online travel agencies. So these would be what a lot of people use to book packages. So you're looking at like booking.com, Expedia, Kayak, hotels.com, any of those kind of online brandings. We just want to talk a minute about those folks and why using a travel designer might be better to you. And quite honestly, there's literally no cost difference. The most major thing that you will find is that the OTAs, again, we're talking about like Expedias and Booking.coms. They actually typically get a chunk of, if it's lodging, they get a chunk of hotel rooms that they're kind of set aside to them. and they actually beat up the hotel for the best commission rate the highest commission rate they can get, right? So I think the average is something like that they get a 20% commission rate typically on their side. You don't see any of that. You just get kind of, it's an easier experience, admittedly, because it's, a package is put together. You look at it, you shop based on price, and then you click OK. Fantastic experience. What I would also say is that the downside to that is that there is no customization, and I only get, as a travel designer, travel agent, usually 10, maybe up to 12 or 15% commission on specific, maybe less or more out of the way things. But typically it's a 10% commission rate for Fora, who is my parent agency. And then it's 7%. Fora takes 3% from that, and 7% for me, right? So we actually put all this information inside of our option guide, just so transparency, you can see exactly what we're making, and that, what we're trying to kind of deliver on is that we're not picking out experiences because we're making money off of it. We're picking out experiences that we hope it's probably a blend, right? Like, we'd like to get money for what we do, but at the same time, if you do not want this thing, we will not book it, right? We want to make sure that, again, we're playing the long game where we're building trust. That's what we're doing right now. We want you to be able to come to us and just rely on us, and us not take advantage of that, because that's exactly when trust is broken, and that's what the travel industry has done. We just don't want to be another broken record from that perspective. So guys, like, from the perspective of OTAs, we definitely just want you to keep that in mind, that it looks like a better price, it looks like a better experience, but these suppliers, specifically lodging, aren't going to give you nearly the same amount of perks, right? Because there's a 10% difference in the money that they're paying out from an OTA to a travel agent or a travel designer. So you actually get more perks with us for the same exact cost. A lot of folks don't want to work with travel agents or travel designers because they think there's more cost involved. Some travel designers and travel agents do have an upfront cost for their time. We're hoping to not have to do that. We're hoping to kind of subsidize that with, trips as we keep coming and building kind of experiences. But that is definitely from the perspective of, like, OTAs. Just keep that in mind. Like, there is literally no difference in you. It's really a time thing, and that's why we want to keep questionnaire short. We want to get this to a approve or deny state where you feel like you can either just, we prepare things in a state that you can take a look at it and basically, kind of click the button as you look at it and just say, yeah, yes or no, right? So try to keep it kind of in a similar pattern that you could do online, but do it and know where your money is going in a little bit different way. So that's our little spiel on OTAs. You'll probably hear more from us about about that perspective, but we just want to be upfront about it, because I think commissions are often something that we're going to touch on a lot. And also, one of the most confusing and underrated pieces of being a travel designer, travel agent is trying to get that out and about and let people know we're not making a ton of money from these things unless you book the 4 or 5 star resort, which I said up front is not something that we are going to do. So, all right, as we close out here, travel hack of the week. And I had it here. What is it? Let's see. It's almost like finding it again and being surprised by it. Let's see. Oh yeah. So for us, the travel hack of the week is actually, we already mentioned this, is try to find smaller airports to travel out of until the partial shutdown is lifted. As soon as that's done, please go to a major airport if you can. A lot of people like staying close, but most times you're spending a lot more money and actually time, or at least, at the very least, taking a higher risk, right? Because it's another location your bags have to make. It's another leg of the trip that you have to make. And oftentimes I see it time and time again where the smaller airports are very much a little bit easier to cancel that plane and leave travelers stranded. That's definitely not what you want, either going to your destination or almost even worse, coming back from your destination where you're just tired, you want to get home. Yeah, so the 2 hacks that we mentioned of, looking for a little bit later flight, not being kind of the first out of there, and then also trying to find small airports. I think with the TSA situation we have right now, let's just stay smart with that and go from there. So cool. All right, let's see. The last thing, let's see. Wellness. So the 8 areas of wellness we just want to cover real quick. It's why we got into this, quite frankly, is there are 8 areas. I'm looking at my board that has it actually up on here. Emotional, physical, spiritual, social, environmental, intellectual, occupational, financial. Take a look at our previous, actually episode 0 of our podcast that talks about these. We're very big into that, and that's kind of driving why we're in travel, because travel actually, why we chose travel, we love doing it, we love booking it. People have said how good we are, or I am, at doing it in the past. But even better, it expands over those 8 areas of wellness. So we'll have more that we'll touch on in the future about that. But we really are passionate about just like people being the best version of themselves and being able to heal, right? And sometimes travel in all 8 of those areas can make a difference. And that's why we're here, right? We just want to help people. We just want to be there and kind of see people grow and step into the places that they want to go to. So, all right, y'all. So for travel hack and for anything about wellness, we'd love to hear anything that you want to submit. Like, what's your travel hack of the week? We'll kind of reach out in the middle of the week and try to kind of gather those. Guys, I think that's it. It's been awesome. Episode 0 in the books. Let's do it. Let's hear a cheer or not. Hopefully. Or maybe actually I kind of like the pink and purple, so maybe I'll have them moving forward, but maybe I'll have different ones next time, or maybe none at all. We'll see. I don't know. All right, guys, like and subscribe. This would be awesome. Or any of the channels that are up behind me. We're trying our best. If you want to see specific content, let us know. It's been awesome. Go out there, travel safe.